Does it go on automatically?
Don't need that one.
Oh, it's just rather than that. Right, okay, that's fine. Okay, well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the meeting of this planning and community meeting being held on today, the 21st of October 2025. Woodley Town Council meetings are now recorded, with the recording streamed live and stored on the Town Council's YouTube channel. By virtue of attending the meeting, you consent to having your image and audio recorded for this purpose. If you do not wish for your image and audio to be recorded, then please do not stay for the meeting. For those of you in attendance, we're not expecting a fire drill tonight, so if you hear the fire alarm, please head to the nearest fire exit and congregate at the fire assembly point by the Oakwood Centre at the front of Woodford Park. Okay. Item 1 on the agenda is apologies.
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillors Horskins, Lewis, Jewell and Singh, and Councillor Horskins has joined us virtually.
Thank you very much. Do we have any declarations of interest? Oh, okay, that's fine. Before we start the meeting for the planning community, we have a presentation this evening from the Wokingham Borough Council My Journey team. So if you'd like to start, we'll start with you, if we may. Welcome.
Okay, thank you.
They're going to actually talk, I should introduce, you're actually telling us about the provision for future bus services. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So my name is Rebecca Brooks. I'm Community Transport Manager at Wokingham Borough, and I look after local bus service, all the contracted services, as well as the community transport services. So we are starting our initial work around what we think we can provide beyond March 27, so 2027, because it takes a significant amount of time to tender for services. And what we want to do is understand the social need within the borough, and then look at what resources and funding we have available.
Sorry, can you hear?
Finding it difficult to hear. It's got a mic.
The mics.
Sorry, yeah, that's not being amplified though. Apologies, so I just need to speak up a little. That's
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, so we're starting some of that initial work with towns and parish councils, talking to the towns and parish councils about some of the options, early indications of options that we've come up with. And to come up with those options, we've been talking to a number of different stakeholder groups within the communities to find out what our social need is, and then try and tailor some of the future options based on the social need. So in terms of coming to Woodley Town Council this evening, we're looking at some of the data that we've looked at, some of the quantitative and qualitative data, and what the outcomes of that are. Some of the initial options that have come forward from our consultants, they are initial options for a second round of engagement. They're not final options. And after we've engaged with towns and parish councils, we'll go out to a public consultation. And then we're looking to see if these options align with the town's objectives. And we have quite a few options here. And at the minute, we don't have the funding for all of those options, so we need to whittle them down before we go out to public consultation to see which ones are the most viable and which ones we can fund, and take out what we potentially can't fund. So it's a case of partnership working across the borough. So what I'm just going to go through is some of the methodology that we've used, some of the data we've used, what those options are looking like at the moment, and then I was hoping for a discussion with the town council around what initial thoughts are and what the next steps might be going forward. So the next slide will just give us an outline of some of the process that's been undertaken. So on stage 1, left-hand side, that's where Alison from our My Journey team has been talking to many different groups across the borough. So that's internal and external to the council. So we've engaged 37 different groups. Alison, could you just give us a flavour of some of the groups within Woodley?
So
That we've engaged.
within Woodley, we've spoken to your schools, we've spoken to women's groups, we've spoken to disability groups, and we have spoken to some local charities and some local church groups.
Thank you. And then that was all about how does the network perform at the moment? What are the gaps? What could we do better at? Where are the pressures on the network? And then alongside that, we've had people looking at how does the network perform at the minute? How many passengers are using it? What are the costs per passenger? What's the punctuality like? How accessible does the network make the area to hospitals, to schools? And all of that's been modelled. And then those two data sets have been taken forward and created a series of options. So we started with one set of routes, we modelled those, we see how they perform, we take on board the engagement, and then we tweaked those to see how the next set of routes perform. And then we've gone through an iterative process. We've taken those back to the bus operators, we've spoken to them, how do they think that they would work in reality, looked at the costing models. And after we've been through 19 different scenarios, we've come up with what we've got today. And I will say it's not significantly different to what's on the ground, but there are subtle differences. And for some areas, particularly the south of the borough, not actually in the Woodley area, we've also looked at something called a demand responsive transport, because that tends to fit in a more rural area. But if we go on to our next slide, that's just a list of those different data sets and some of the things that we've looked at. So I haven't included all the analysis within this presentation. If the town council or the councillors would like to see any of that, I can of course send that separately afterwards. But that's everything we've tried to cover.
It is a lot of reading. There was an awful lot of data we went through and a lot of people we spoke to.
But if we go on to the next one, right, so population density, the more people you have in an area, the more viable bus services are. So what you tend to find here, that's the overall density of the borough, and the darker the green underneath, the more dense it is. So the Early, Woodley, and to some extent the Shinfield area are the most dense areas in the borough, and you see that mirrored in the commerciality of the bus network. So you will have more commercial bus services in those areas. So you've got 13s and 14s in Woodley, and in Lower Early there's the 21, for example. That's more commercial. Where the population tends to be less dense, then that's where the support tends to be required. And for example, in the Wokingham town area and the rural areas coming into Wokingham, the Wokingham without area, that's less dense. So those services require a bit more support. So we've got the Shinfield, the Early, the Woodley, and then the spine road down the centre of the borough there, the A329 Reading Road, going through Winnish into Wokingham town, which is the line 4A. That's also a commercial route. So when we looked at population, Woodley was quite unique in terms of its population because it had a fairly even split between the age groups, which is something that we didn't necessarily find in other areas of the borough. So the north and the south of the borough had disproportionately higher populations in the over 65 category. And then we tended to find that the Lower Early and the Shinfield areas had higher younger populations relating to families, whereas Woodley did have just about every age population fairly evenly distributed, other than the 20 to 29-year-olds, which wasn't uncommon with the rest of the borough. We just don't seem to have as many 20 to 29-year-olds anywhere within the borough. I think there was a small area of Early that did. There were some gaps in the commercial network, most notably along House Drive and Drovers Way. And these are the current areas that are served by the 19A and 19C at the moment that do receive council support. And we'll see some of that on the next slide. This is where we've looked at car ownership data and the indices of multiple deprivation. So indices of multiple deprivation is a general measure of affluence. Car ownership data, the darker the area, the higher the number of households that don't have any access to cars or vans. And this is taken from the 2021 census. And we can see that there's two darker areas in Woodley, and they marry exactly with some of the less wealthy areas of Woodley as well. And then that's how we identify that there might be a need there for us to ensure that we have got some sort of transport provision in those areas. Now, that's quite difficult to identify which roads are within those areas, but I think I'm right in saying the one to the south is around that Drovers Way area that already has the 19A, 19C, and that will be the reason it was provided there. So the next slide just gives us an overview of the ACON data. I'm not going to go through it in detail, but basically the ACON data takes that, it looks at affluence on a more in-depth scale and drills it down to postcode level. So the two tiers of ACON data that are least affluent are the stretched society and the low income living. And I'll let you read that separately later, but that just gives you a flavour of the types of households that you might find within those two bands. Now, the next slide maps those postcode datas. So you can see where people who are struggling a bit more financially might be living within the Woodley area. And again, the stretched society is definitely coming out around the Fairwater Drive and the House Drive area. House Drive, Drovers Way area. And then there's little patches around Miles Way, Spitfire Way, again served by the 19s, and then a bit further north as well. So I think the overall picture is, whilst the borough is quite wealthy, and parts of Woodley are showing that, there's also these little pockets that we mustn't forget and we do need to try and cater for. So the next slide just gives us some of, this just gives us an overview of what people in the borough said as part of that engagement. And then we'll look at what people in Woodley said more specifically. So as a borough as a whole, people said that they would like improved connections between the towns of Wokingham, Reading, Twyford and Bracknell. They'd like better connections to and from Wokingham. Lots of people within the borough, wherever they were, saw Wokingham was quite central. People who are commuting would like better connections to trains and better connections to medical centres was asked for in quite a lot of the borough as well, because we found that many of the services from the Royal Berkshire Hospital, for example, are actually being devolved into local community provisions. And for example, you might have to go to Reading University for an appointment, or you might go to Brandsbridge in Bracknell. You wouldn't always now go to the Royal Berkshire Hospital. And our bus network does tend to point towards the hospital. It's still important, but it's not the only place. There was an ask from many groups for better evening and weekend services. Now, the 13s and 14s do have quite a good evening service already, but that's not true of all the services across the borough. And certainly the 19s, if you compare them to the 19s, they don't operate as long. And then some areas asked for better connections to new developments. More accessible transport was a common theme from many groups, particularly older people and those with disabilities, whether that be the bus stop, whether it be the bus, for accessible information. We did find that was a common theme. And then greater capacity in the community transport and volunteer sector. For those that use the community transport, they found it invaluable. But those operators, it was noted, were struggling with capacity and couldn't always provide the trips when people were asking for them. So we are going to try and pick up community transport as part of our review. So the next slide will, we've got some of the good things that people said about transport in Woodley. So the 13s and 14s are frequent, roughly 2 an hour. They operate between 5 AM and 11 PM at night. They seem fairly well liked. The 19As and Cs, they serve the schools, they serve the hospital. We are aware that they are quite busy services, particularly in the morning and the afternoon when school children are using them. The 128, this is a supported service. It's roughly hourly. It does connect with Twyford and Wokingham, although some people weren't aware that that connection is there. There's also the 850 that seems to be a popular service along the A4 to the north of Woodley. It is walkable for some residents at the moment. And as I mentioned previously, we've got some evening services. So what could be better? Some of the low income households in and around the Ship Lake area, South Lake area, indicate that buses don't give change. So a lot of low income households are dependent on using cash because it's easier to budget, but you can't get change. And residents often wanting to travel to Asda or the hospital. And we did find that some particularly vulnerable groups would like to access support services in Wokingham town, which is quite difficult from Woodley, particularly if they're running the evenings. And then there's a bit of uncertainty around 128 and whether it goes to Wokingham, and some commuters were saying it's not easy to get from parts of Woodley into Twyford. And then there's that ask for better information. So just to briefly run through some of the community transport, we've modelled the trips on the next slide. The darker the area, the more community transport trips that are undertaken by Redibus in the area. So Woodley is actually taking the highest proportion of trips with Redibus at the moment, which is around 1,800 trips a year with Woodley. And as is common with other areas of borough, these are predominantly on the dial-a-ride services. So someone rings up and asks to go to a certain place, and they try and accommodate that. No. There we go.
Sorry, I was going to say, let's get the discussion over, and then we'll come back with our questions.
Okay, so if we could just jump the next slide and move on to a couple of the proposals, then that would be really good. Thank you. So some of the proposals that have come out of what we've discussed, as I said, what's come back isn't too dissimilar to what we've got. So the 19s, we're still looking to provide those in more or less the current form. So I haven't brought anything here with the 19s here, but the 19s are there. We won't be looking to amend commercial services because we don't have that. We're not able to change commercial services such as 13s and 14s. So we focused on things like we have the 128, 129 to Wokingham. So we were looking at making these services, we say, more even. So you've got a more regular running time through Woodley. We're looking at every half an hour running between Reading, Woodley, Sonning, Twyford, providing the evening service for people who are commuting from rail station back into Woodley, and providing the weekend service. We do believe that this should be largely commercial, but may require a small amount of support. And then that will help support the evenings and the weekends. What's most notable here is that it doesn't connect down into Wokingham, which is what the current service does, because we'd look to split it at Twyford. So anybody who wants to use that particular service to get to Wokingham would have to change at Twyford. Now we've got another option that would look at a potential alternative between Woodley and Wokingham, which is more direct, because people weren't understanding that the 128s going up via Twyford then down to Wokingham, it seemed quite a long journey for them. So if we skip to the next slide, this is the proposal that's come forward with a Woodley connection. So as I said initially, we're struggling to fund anything beyond what we're funding at the moment. So just to give a flavour of what this could potentially cost, I've put some ballpark figures down in the right-hand corner. What we're going to try and do is look to build business cases based on the routes that we get feedback from the towns and parishes that might meet the objectives of those towns and parishes which they are serving. So what we've tried to do here is look at some of the school services that we've got in the area, and if we could integrate those and bring the revenue from those services across onto a public service, that way that will help support that public service and make it available for more people to use throughout the day. We're also going to be talking to Wokingham Town Council, because there's an ask from the Wokingham town area for links to North Wokingham, which is why you see the route structured in the way it is. And there's also an ask from the early area for a link to Wokingham. And then for the Woodley area, this is the direct link to Wokingham as well. And it serves the two rail stations, Winnish and Winnish Triangle. So there's a possibility of running that hourly from Woodley into Wokingham, and then the Wokingham section would be half hourly with the alternate half hour serving the lower early area. And we'd like to run that sort of Monday to Saturday on a regular basis. So that's one of the alternative options. And then the other option is on the next slide that we've been talking to towns and parishes about, and that's about improving the capacity within the community transport sector, really aimed at group travel. So that tends to be those who are over a certain age or those with disabilities, making sure that there's more buses available for the two operators that are currently operating, and then asking those operators to manage those buses and within local areas, so that they can provide more trips for each of the local areas and people can get access to those services. And in the case of Woodley, given feedback we had from some of those groups and the need to access support services in Wokingham, we could potentially tie that in with an option of better access into Wokingham town after a certain time, just for people who are members of those support groups. Because of the way the licensing works, we couldn't open it up to the public. So that's an overview of what we've done today. We have the fund, or we are looking to fund potentially the base network that we have at the moment. Anything over and above that, we're asking partners, would they be willing to fund anything? Or are there partners within their area who we can talk to see if we can fund anything? And we're also looking internally to see if we've got any business cases we can build, and we're looking at any investor save proposals. But unfortunately, I can't come here today and say we're definitely going to do all of this, because we don't have the funding for everything. And we need to really work to whittle it down to see what's going to be the best options for communities.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll just ask you one question,
Yes.
very quickly. We had a situation going back 2 years maybe in Swallowfield, I think, where it was a low population. Bus services were cut because Reading Transport decided that they couldn't afford to run those services. And suddenly we had to, when I say we, Woking and Borough Council had to come up with an increased subsidy to be able to bring those services back. Is there any likelihood that, you can do all your budgeting, but suddenly the Reading Transport might turn around and say, well, we've now found that this route isn't good enough. We're not going to run it and we need a subsidy to do so, or an increased subsidy to do so. Because that then throws your budget out, doesn't it? I mean, it must have done in Swallowfield. Suddenly you've got.
It does.
Yeah.
It depends on the way we tender. So we could identify the budget, identify the objectives and say, we would like tender bids that meet these objectives because that's what we've discussed and that's what we want to do. And please give us options which meet those objectives. And then we would have routes within budget. I will be talking to Swallowfield Parish Council about some of the options we're looking at in that area. And there are some potential changes that could be brought about in there as well.
I'm only using that as an example because that could happen anywhere.
It could. In this area, we're seeing more and more competition actually, and that's good for bringing the cost down and improving the service.
Thank you. Question, David. Yeah.
Can I correct a number of things that you said, first of all? Early is well provided with buses. You take the number 26, they run every 10 minutes until Lower Early. Then you've got the number 17 that comes out of Reading all the way down the Wokingham Road. So Early are very well covered by buses. With Woodley, we're not so. We've got E13 and 14, but they go in a circular fashion. So it means that some people, particularly those around the South Lake Crescent area, if they want to get to the precinct in Woodley to do their shopping, they cannot get a bus. They've got to queue on the wrong side of the road and go all the way around the back of Woodley, eventually turning up at the Chequers by the precinct. So, and those services run every half an hour. Ideally, it should be every 15 minutes, unless we can get the two routes independent of one another, covering the whole of Woodley, in which case then you've got the two services covering it. The 19s route are very good because they help people get to the hospital, but they run every hour, and that's only during the day. So if someone's got an appointment at the hospital at say 10:30, they've got to catch the 9 o'clock bus to be able to get there in time for their 10:30 appointment. So they're sat in the hospital twiddling their thumbs, waiting, and then the same coming back. Ideally, that should be every half an hour taking us there. The 128 service, the only places I know in Woodley where there are bus stops are Reading Road and Western Avenue. Then they go off up Butser Road, across down through Sonning, and then round into Twyford and so on. So if anyone in Woodley wants to get to Wokingham by bus, theoretically they can't. And not unless they walk the whole length of Woodley to the Wokingham Road and get on the number 17, or they catch the 128, which runs every hour during the daytime, and then they've got about an hour and a half bus journey to get round to Wokingham. The Twyford route from Woodley is a necessity. There are a lot of people here who work in London and travel in daily, and now the Elizabeth line is open. They want to get to the Elizabeth line because they then haven't got to change and fuss about on the underground in London to get to their offices. But you don't need that all day. I would have thought that would be between the hours possibly 6 and 8 in the morning, and probably 6 to, well, say 5:30 to 7 in the evening as people come back. I wouldn't have thought that would needed to be a regular service during the day. What we've got to remember here also is Woodley, I think I'm correct in saying, the largest town by population in the area, with just under 30,000, I think, Kevin. A lot of those people are elderly and vulnerable people, and they want to use the buses to actually get to a place to do their shopping, whether it be Woodley Precinct, Wokingham or Reading. They use the buses for that. All right, I know they have the bus passes, which are very useful. But if they've got, at the present time, if they've got to go to Wokingham, maybe a problem with their council tax to discuss at Shoot End, maybe to register a death at the registry office over there. It could be 1,001 different reasons why they need to go to Wokingham. They can't, unless they order a taxi or are lucky enough to have a car. And these things, in my mind, have got to be very seriously looked at. You're doing a good job. Don't get me wrong. What you've obviously put a lot of work into the data, but I think you've got to actually read into that data and see what areas you're missing.
In terms of next steps then, what's the best way to get a Woodley Town Council feedback and see whether there's any opportunities for Woodley Town Council to fund? Because some of those ideas are great ideas.
Yeah, I mean, what I would suggest, you've done a very good presentation there. If we could have a copy of that sent to Kevin, and then Kevin, you could circulate it to every councillor, asking for their comments. All right, and then it can be fed back.
It's very strange as a borough, and we're all Wokingham Borough, that we make it very easy to get to Reading to do your shopping. We make it extremely difficult to get into our own shops in Wokingham. You know, that's something that's always been a concern. I mean, my wife wants to go to Wokingham. She doesn't really want to drive into Wokingham, but she says it's so difficult to get to Wokingham by bus. She doesn't go. I mean, you've got the park and ride at Winners Triangle that takes you to Reading. It goes one way, it takes everybody out of Woodley to Reading, not to Wokingham.
But you can't get to the park and ride without driving.
No.
But you do have an option within that pack for a Wokingham link.
Yes.
Directly from the centre of Woodley. That was trying to.
Yes, I think that's an absolute must, because we should be encouraging people to shop in our borough. Sorry? Robert.
Thanks, Bill. So I'm watching it on my phone in my shed, so I couldn't actually see any of the slides. I've got a couple of questions and a couple of observations. David's point regarding the 128. Yeah, it just seemed to loop around to the very north of Woodley. So maybe just some little tweaks to some of these routes could be useful. So bring that down to Woodley Town Centre and along Headley Road and back to Sonning that way, for example. I've always thought a good local bus service would be from the Nightingale Road end of Early Station through to Woodley Town Centre and then out to Twyford Station. and just shuttle backwards and forwards between those two stations all day. I'm sure that would pick up quite a lot of the commuters that David mentioned. Of course, one of the biggest problems for getting buses to Wokingham is the Loddon Bridge Road bridge isn't big enough to get buses under. But maybe we could look at getting some service that would run down the Barder Way and join up with the Reading Road there, so people can use the 4 and 4X to Wokingham and Bracknell and beyond. Money. Oh, if only we had enough money. So Woodley Town Council contribute what, 20 grand a year to the community bus fund. How much money comes in from all the other parish councils? Is everyone else sort of paying their bit? And I understand, I couldn't see the slides. I understand we have 2 bus services that we contract. We've got Reading Transport, which is owned by Reading Borough Council, and I believe Thames Travel as well, which I think is a private company. Or am I wrong there? Anyway, just some observations down in deepest Cornwall, where the buses finish at 6 o'clock and run every 2 hours.
Thank you very much.
So, not sure how relevant it is, but there was a meeting something like 30 years ago when we had to decide whether we wanted to be part of Wokingham or Reading. Some of you will remember. I spoke at that meeting. I was in favour of being allied to Reading, and one comment I made then was that you can't even catch a bus to Wokingham from Wokingham. I've lived here 20 years by then. It doesn't sound as though there's much enthusiasm for the last 30 years to change that.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly take that point. I remember that meeting. Yeah. Yes, we got nowhere. Nowhere with it at all. And people do need to go into Wokingham from Woodley for whatever reason, and they have to take the car. They've got no alternative. And with an aging population in Woodley, a lot of them don't want to drive.
I think you can take from what you've heard tonight, and this has come up in meetings before. One of the main routes that's always up for discussion is Woodley to Twyford, as David said, and definitely Woodley to Wokingham. So I think if you can take those 2 points away with you, that's something for you to work on as feedback from us, and also sending around the copies of this presentation to all the councillors, getting their feedback back, then we can pass that down to you, and then maybe we can see you again and you can come up with what you think of what we've said, and if you can come up with any solutions. That would be your challenge from this, I think.
Yeah. You might be able to get single level bus that is the right size to actually accommodate the bridge.
Yeah, I think it's one of those like the Reading buses size, not a great big double decker or anything like that.
You wouldn't be able to do
No, you just need
a
one of
double
these
decker.
minibus type.
I mean, you get the orange bus, you do the 17 there, can't you? It looked at 17 then.
Yeah.
The 19.
19.
Robert,
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
had that.
Yeah, I've seen that. I think that was the old one.
Yeah, so-
Robert, you put your hand up. Is that the old or is that the new?
A new one. It's a new one, and now I've forgotten what I was going to say. Oh, yes. So, question. Right. So we're going to have the slides sent to us. Is there something we can put on our Facebook page, on the Woodley Town Council Facebook page? Will you be doing a sort of emailed public consultation? But something that people can just send emails in and haven't got to log into, because I think people would be quite interested by this locally.
Getting it all together to get back.
That's right.
Right.
So this round of engagement, we've done an initial round of engagement, which was with specifically local groups. This is the second round of engagement, which is with towns and villages. And then we will look to doing a more public consultation, which will be January time, early 2026. And that's when we'll come back to something we can share more widely. So at the minute, we're seeing what potentially we can fund before we go out to public consultation.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Linda has a-
Oh, Linda, yes.
I think you need to look very, very carefully at what proposals you're thinking of putting in for disabled people. Okay, because I think you will find that of the population of Woodley that is disabled, not even a fifth, not even a tenth of them are actually using the bus service. And they're also limited with dial ride and the other community transport things, because they have to book in advance for quite a few days, and 2 days a week, both those community transport services are taken up with doing the shopping trips. Okay, so 2 days a week you can book to go on your trip to Asda, and they will go around Woodley, pick up 10 people and take them over to Asda for the morning. Okay, and bring them back with their shopping, or take them over to one of the other supermarkets in the morning and bring them back. I think they do a Tesco run as well. It's very limited as to how many people can actually use that transport system. Okay, I've never actually been able to use the one at Woking. I've never yet been able to book a ride on.
Your feedback mirrors everything that I heard locally. I spoke to many disability groups across the board, and your feedback mirrors, and we are very concerned that the community transport is at capacity and it's very much on its knees, and we really do, all of us need to do something to help everyone and make it more equitable for everybody. So you're mirroring exactly what I've heard across the borough.
Yeah,
Everywhere.
but in 20 years, I've never been able to book a ride on Delaride or Ready Bus at all to actually take me anywhere. And when I inquired about going out of the borough to the next borough, Maidenhead and Windsor, I couldn't do it. Okay, because they don't cross the border. So you can't, I couldn't go from Woodley to Maidenhead railway station, where I could get a train from Maidenhead to Windsor. I had to actually go to Twyford, take a train from there, change at Maidenhead, then get a train to Windsor.
Have you tried that 127 service?
No,
At the weekends, it stops by Lidl, only at the weekends, it's a different company. But in the week, unfortunately, the nearest place is Parkview Drive, which is, you've then got to get there, I understand, but it runs round Twyford, down the Bath Road and to St Mark's Hospital in Maidenhead and Grenfell Road near the station. But I think it's fairly new, and it's like all of them, it's got to be used to be kept. But that's a very useful service.
Yeah.
For now, but it's, as David said earlier, you've got to get to the bus stops.
To your bus stop.
That's the
You've got to
difference.
get to your initial destination, and that's the
service where you could, what's it called, hail
yeah.
and ride.
Yeah, that's called a taxi.
Yeah.
Well, it's not called a taxi in this area, because you have to ring up and hope that you get someone that speaks the lingo.
Right, well, thank you very much. I think we could go on all night and we could keep
Yeah.
coming up with new ideas, but I'm very grateful. I'm sure the committee and everybody is grateful for you
But
coming
I'm
along.
glad I've mirrored what other disabled people have said.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming along. We look
I wish you
forward
were
to.
mirroring
Yeah.
I wish you were.
We look forward to seeing the updated.
Yes, definitely.
And thank you very much for the presentation. And you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you like, but I'm sure you'd rather get out into the bright sunny weather.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is minutes of the planning and community meeting held on 26th of August 25. This meeting was take place live, but we did actually deal with the planning applications and any other issues that came up. So you're quite happy with the minutes that were produced, that they're a true record. I can sign them as such. Yep. Okay. Actions and follow-ups, which is on page 14. Is there anything that we need to look at on there and update?
I've got a couple of further updates.
Right.
So just to note under minutes 52, I have now written to Property Services at secondary stores as well, and they're awaiting response to the acknowledgement that they've received that.
This is the access.
Yeah, that's the access.
Yes,
In terms of the Lockville Centre.
Very good, thank you.
And likewise under 58.2 average of highways. Charging channels, funding, the government funding for that, so that's waiting response.
Okay, thank you very much. Any wishes to raise on the?
I think they have addressed the access around at Tesco's, because I've been around there a few times and it's quite easy to get in there.
Oh, that's good. Good. That's fine. Right. Okay, we come on to now the planning applications. And this is on page 18 and 19 of your agenda. And rather than running as the agenda says, the list says, we'll bring the representatives of the public here. And rather than you have to sit through the whole lot, we'll alter the order in which we take them. And I think looking at the majority, I think you're for Retford. Is it Retford Close? Sorry? Seville's Close, sorry. Yeah, you actually second on the agenda anyway, so we'll deal with that one first. This is planning application 252063, which is 2 Steggles Close. It's a full application for the proposed change of use from residential to mixed use of residential and supported living accommodation. I think we've all had a good look at this.
Yeah.
It's
I think the residents and the objections they put forward have hit the nail right on the head.
So do I. I've written down exactly what I've gleaned from those, and they all are in line of the things that we would say.
The issues on parking is valid. You know, it seems to me that if we're looking at 2 spaces only and there's going to be a minimum 4 vehicles there, it's obvious it's going to be in the road. Sorry?
No, I've got to go, not.
No.
It's quite,
It's, you know, I don't know how we stand as far as planning is concerned, but it's not in its ideal position in a close such as Steggles.
It's not the sort of location
No.
you would want with a children's home. With greatest respect, you know, it is a care provider, but it's the wrong location.
wrong.
But I think the committee are generally in agreement with all the comments that you made, and we will make our observations based on that as well. Is there anything else you wish to add at this time?
I was just concerned about the grass area in front.
Yes.
of it.
It looks as though it's, you're saying the boundary lines are all drawn wrong.
Yes.
I think we need to make that point as well, that we feel that the boundary lines are wrong.
So the people who own that house don't own that road, do they? No.
No.
And I would hate it to be turned into a car park.
Yeah.
Move out to my kitchen.
Right.
Yeah, it's not fair.
I think, you know, we've got to make it quite clear to you that we're here just to make a local view and represent your views to the Borough Council. We're not the deciding committee. What I would say is to perhaps involve your Borough Councillor in the process, because very often these applications can be dealt with by the planning officer rather than a committee. So the planning officer could look at it and say, yeah, I'm quite happy with that and pass it through. Ideally, if you think there's that possibility that's going to happen, you can ask for it to be listed. And that means it goes before a committee, which is made up of local councillors. So you have more of a hearing of what's actually happening. You can actually go along a representative can go along and speak against it or for it, whichever way you want to go. And also your borough councillor will speak on your behalf. Now, what I would say is if you can get in touch, I don't know if the borough councillor for that one is Warren.
Right. Is it still Michael Firmage?
It could be Michael Firmage, yes. If you can look that up, you'll find it in the Wokingham Borough area. Find your borough councillor, get in contact with him and say that you would like this listed. And what it is in the event of the planning officers approving this, you would like it listed and have it put before the committee rather than the decision being made by the planning officer. And it just gives you another voice, and it gives you the opportunity to speak, and then the wider people to make the decision. All right.
Remember also, you will only have 3 minutes allowed for what you want to say at Wokingham Borough, and you'll only be allowed one person on your behalf to stand up. So decide amongst yourself who that person's to be and get something between you written out that you can actually state to the committee while you're there.
But our observations that we make tonight will be forwarded to the borough.
Do that straight away now.
I would get in touch with your I think it is Michael Firmage, as your borough councillor. And you can get his contact details on the website for Wokingham Borough. Just get in contact with him and say that this planning application is going forward and you would like it to be listed. And then he'll come back to you.
Chair, Deputy Town Clerk.
Oh, yes.
Chip in there.
Yes, Matthew.
Hi, thank you, Chair. Just to make a note about the line around the site. The line will show the site that is being considered as part of the application, not necessarily the site that is owned or not. As you're well aware, planning applications can cover sites. It might cover 2 sites next to each other, sites not owned, parts of sites and things like that. So that indicates the site. It's if it goes over a boundary, that's absolutely fine. That's just to indicate the site that's in scope for the planning application. And just a quick one that I've just been checking up on the date. The consultation period ends on the 29th of October for this application. So in terms of listing, that listing would need to be made by a borough council by the 29th. So there's still a week to contact councillors. But as you've suggested, if residents wish to do so, they would need to do it fairly quickly to make sure that it gets in.
Okay, yeah, so contact your borough councillor, but very quickly, just make it quite clear to him, it needs to be in by the 29th, so you don't miss it, all right?
Yes.
What happens with, so in the appendix for that, there's another property, the other side of Woodley, that went through a process, it was rejected, and it was resubmitted, and finally, and eventually got accepted.
Well, I mean, yeah, they've always got, the developer or the owner has always got the right to appeal.
Yeah.
That can always happen. And then again, you go through the process again. But the appeal, once the borough's made his decision, that's a decision the borough has. He can go to appeal, but it's an appeal hearing that then you'll say it again, not the borough. Sorry, Matthew. Am I wrong?
Thank you, Chair. I've just got another point which might help residents to understand as well. There was a similar application that came to this committee in March earlier in the year in relation to 38 Woodway. The application reference is 250114, and that was for exactly the same change of use from a residential property to a young person's residential property. That application had very similar comments raised, and that application was approved by Wokingham Borough Council. It is probably worthwhile to understand that application, going on to Wokingham Borough Council's planning portal, searching for that. As I say, the reference is 250114. Reading the comments and reading the officer report that Wokingham Borough Council put in, because it will help to understand how those sorts of comments were responded to on that application. Every application is different and will be considered differently, but if there are similarities, it's probably worthwhile just understanding those at this point.
Yeah, that's the one that's in the appendix 1, which does have pretty much identical reasons. Obviously, then it's accepted, which is why no concern.
Yes, yes. I think our observations were that we were against the application, but it went and got approved. And that, I think, is, I don't know whether that went to committee or whether that was approved by the officer. But I would really suggest that you ask for this one to be listed.
Was that previous one not listed? Is that why?
I can't remember. Was it? I don't think that was listed.
I believe that was an officer's decision. It's an officer's report responding to a lot of those comments, because I know a lot of those a lot of comments about things like noise and potential interaction with families. Again, that's not a planning issue because you can't ever dictate who would live at that property anyway. So what noise and disruption is caused, I think, was not considered a planning issue. Obviously, things like parking is a planning issue, and those are the sorts of things maybe that should be focused on. But again, if you look at the comments and the officer's response, that's really going to help you a lot in terms of formulating your objections as well and understanding what officers at Wokingham can and can't consider.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Okay.
Do we care as well where it's coming from? The application is coming from Chiswick.
Yes, yes.
Out county. So that's it, outside of our.
Well, the ownership is from Chiswick, isn't it? The owner is from Chiswick.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, I thought that was the address given on it, wasn't it?
It wasn't originally, it used to live there.
That really makes no difference at all. I mean, you know, it's basically the property is within Wokingham Borough, and that's where the whole thing is dealt with. So. Okay,
Yes.
thank you very much for your time, and I wish you luck. Good luck.
They were up this morning, Wokingham Borough Council, taking photographs.
Okay.
They were, yeah.
Yeah, as a personal car. He's then already doing all that.
Right.
Quite right.
Okay. Anyway, yes.
Thank you.
Luck. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Right. We'll come on to the next one, which has public interest tonight, is 252344. And that is 11 Retford Close, householder application for the proposed erection of a part two-storey, single-storey side and rear extension, incorporating alterations to the fenestration and external materials, including sections of off-white render and vertical timber effect cladding, matching roof tiles, black frame windows, and black UPVC soffits and fascias. Have we got that one on the? Yeah.
It's large.
It's large, yes. Okay, and we do have a member. We'll just go around the committee first, and then I'll come to you for your comments, sir. Okay? So, is any committee members got any comments on this one that they'd like to make?
I had no objections on the extension, but I do object to the cladding. Totally out of keeping with the streets.
Black fascias, black.
So,
Anybody, any comments at all that wish to make? No?
I thought it was quite big
It is.
in comparison to the rest of the area.
Let's hear from the neighbouring resident. So,
That's it. You are just, you have no adverse comments.
no, well, we'd like to hear yours, what your reasons are for objecting to the planning application.
Well, I came here tonight to hear your,
Right.
what you were going to tell the borough people, which I think is the process that happens in them.
Well, yeah.
I was interested to hear whether you had any objections at all to the planning application. I didn't quite hear the answer.
yeah, I mean, I said I object wholeheartedly to the cladding. Because it will look totally out of place with the other houses in the road. You know what I mean by the cladding? The wood effect, vinyl they're planning on putting on the front of the house.
Yeah, I do understand, and you will comment on that, will you?
Most certainly, yes.
Yes.
You were saying.
Well, I do have some comments to make, but my intention was and still is not to talk on any substantial or substantive basis, simply to state my general approach to this, if I may. I bought the house from New 50 years ago, as did number 11, the one that's been altered, maybe altered. We have lived together in harmony ever since then. I now live alone. My wife died 2 years ago, so I now live alone. With regard to the overall changes, about 90% of them only really affect me, my house, if you like, because they are on the right-hand side or the lower side of the picture there.
Yeah.
And if you look at that added on ridge roof there, which, can you see what I mean, which is shaded?
Yeah.
That in fact overlooks patio here, there. My patio is there. And it's the back of my lounge is walks onto it through the French doors. So the fact they are wanting to extend the garage, which is not shown there, but in fact the garage will be 2 meters, I think, further back down the garden than it is at the moment. And that garage wall constitutes the boundary of their plot. Now, there might be some dispute about that, but it's interesting because the way the design is at the moment, they would need access to my property to maintain the changes they're doing to the thing. And so it needs consideration in that regard. The fact is that when I bought the house, and ever since, I have enjoyed the road due to its very open plan nature. They were rather generous with the front garden and things like that. And unusually in Woodley, you could say, there's a great deal of space in the road, and it's apparent we go down it. Most of the buildings there are, obviously, they're very, several have been modified, but none have been modified in any significant way that you would particularly notice, except one. They're all still brick, etc., etc. Now, with regard to the comment that was made earlier about the facade, as I say, I am putting in a proposal before the necessary date, and it's being created for me by my son, who now lives in London, and my daughter lives in Australia. So in a sense, I'm quite on my own there. But the whole of that wall and the extension above it that looks onto my patio, if you like, the whole of the wall is intended to be rendered and painted white. So the current garage that extends more or less to the depth of my patio, and it's brick, and it's just become part of our patio, really. But it is in fact going to be painted and rendered and painted white, and it's within 1 meter of my patio. And it's also going further down the garden by 2 meters anyway, which is not apparent so much on that. And all of the shaded area is extension, as you see there. They're extending the back of the house by about 2 meters, and they are extending the lower floor by a further 2 meters or so. Now, I've got no objection to the lower floor extensions. They won't impose on us very much, but the rest of it does. And rather more usefully than I'm putting it, the proposal will make these points. Just looking at that picture there, if you lowered it again a bit, there, yes, that's the new plan, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you'll notice well, I don't know if I can see it from here, but there's a lot of water having to be drained away from that extension, as you can see, and from the extended garage. And care will have to be taken where that water is run to. There will have to be slopeways, I assume. If there was no comment made about it, it's quite possible it would be most of the water would be allowed to come down my side of the garage, which is only a metre from my house. Now, whether or not that would have some effect on the footings and things like that, because occasionally, particularly these days, we do get downpours with all that extra roof space and so forth. It's going to be substantial. At the moment, the garage is flat topped and simply drains off the back of the garage into their land. So it's substantial change.
Yeah. The effect of the drainage is actually not a planning issue, it's a building control issue. So as far as the planning officer is concerned, the drainage is not an issue that he would take into consideration, but the building control will. So it's.
Well, no, I think it has to be. I mean, the builders don't have that sort of responsibility, do they? It has to be the planning committee.
Yeah, but the building officer from the.
Okays the roof drainage system. It's not clear, I believe, from the application as it is, where they mean to do that.
No. Now, what I'm saying is, it's not the building officer or the building control of the Woking Borough will determine the method of drainage.
Well, I think these things should be raised at the planning committee.
Yes, it can be raised, so you're concerned about it, but I think the
May
decision
not
is
be able to
made.
decide on it. But there's a very large amount of changes going on there.
I think
And
I think the concern of the committee is, one, as David has said, is the finish of the cladding being black is not particularly conducive with the area.
Anthracite grey.
And yes, anthracite grey, which must be black, surely. But also you mentioned about sort of the size of it, so overbearing
Yeah.
would be perhaps another consideration.
if that is the word, overbearing.
Yeah.
That would be the only
Yeah,
objection.
And rather strangely, I mean, I'm going into detail now, but the front of the house, are we looking at it there somewhere? Yeah, we are, aren't we? Top left.
Yeah.
That's, the whole of that place is not to be altered in any significant degree. And yet, and it's, the brickwork, as far as I'm aware, is perfectly okay still. And yet they are cladding it half with render painted white and half with some form of wood cladding, which I don't know the detail of. It's a very strange, and it sort of comes under the category of whether or not it's being very neighbourly to do that. And as far as making the facade on the right of that building there, which is the one that faces my house, white, why are they doing it? Because they cannot see it. They will never see it unless they come into my garden. And yet they are rendering the whole of that side of the house, including the garage, which will be newly built, I suspect, because it's much longer than that. Yeah, and it comes forward. But quite why, whether they've got some personal reason, I don't know. But my son is in this business to some degree, and he feels that if they are building new walls, it can be a lot cheaper to do it without having full bricks. You can build it with stuff and then clad it on top, and it's a lot cheaper. And they may be trying to save money, I don't know. With regard to the people who have put that application in, I've only met them once for about 15 seconds. And until I got the card from your committee saying, or the borough one, saying that these changes have been applied for. I had no knowledge of anything happening. This was about, I don't know, 3 weeks ago. I knew nothing of anything going on in that way. And I've never spoken to the people who are doing it. They've never chosen to speak to me. I don't think it's strange.
One possible reason is increasing energy efficiency. For putting cladding up.
Increasing the
Energy efficiency, it means the house inside will store the heat better.
I think what we could do, as I say, we do make observations on the plans that we've seen. Based on that, the observations we would make is that we are opposed to the cladding, the colouring of the cladding, and also overbearing. Those are the 2 points that we could make objections to.
okay.
And I think that's where we would have to, the committee here will make those observations to the borough. And then, I don't think you've made any written comments to the borough, have you? And it might be worth now making those comments to the borough, make your feelings known to the borough.
It will be included in the document that my son is to produce.
Yeah, that's the best route now.
Now we're going forward.
Yes, yeah. Okay.
So I think that's all I can say, really.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Anyway, it's worth coming along. We get to hear your views and you hear ours and where we can go from. But wish you all luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, just one more thing. Mr. I called you Mr. Phone.
Zone. Yeah, when I get called all sorts of things.
To me over the phone.
Yeah.
Phone.
Yes.
He helped me park my car. Well, he thought he did. This ticket that you gave me says paid nothing, flat nothing, checked in and out from 7:28. And it says place this side up inside the windscreen, which is not normally what you have.
No.
Now-
What I'll do when I go back over, I'll put my card on it and make sure yours checked out as well. So,
Well, yes.
Oh, I saw you. I couldn't put a coin in.
no,
No.
this is the problem.
Yeah.
Gentleman had.
Yes, I've used my
So I
phone.
use my card,
Yeah.
the gentleman gave me.
Yeah,
now.
I saw you.
I'll make sure that you're checked out anyway.
Well, hopefully no one's putting a ticket on the windscreen.
You're right.
Just never know. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I see. I am incidentally, I don't know, well, I'm 91 years old. So these sort of events are quite stressful.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
Okay, well, good luck with
I
it.
need this agenda.
No, you can take the agenda with you if you wish, and a record of what happened.
Right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Right. Go on to now application 251961. We're working the agenda form now, which is 57 Western Avenue. Full application proposed addition of a first floor dormer extension. On that one, I couldn't see any particular issues, but issues, no issues.
So the only thing is an opaque window would be needed.
Yeah, but I need to make that. Yeah, I'll still pick that anyway. Okay, this one, 252116, Shepherd's Hill. This is all about discharging the conditions of 5 and 6. One is about the drainage, which just goes against what I said, and landscaping. Have we got any idea on this one? I've not really had a.
I couldn't see any change between the two applications on the drainage.
Yeah,
It seems to be the same as what was first of
I
all.
looked at it and I thought, this is beyond.
And the only thing I saw in the landscape was, what, a tree and a little hedge.
I suppose it's got to be go through the
I mean,
process.
is there an issue on that, you think? To actually discharge the conditions that, that he wants and make.
I don't think there's any change since this one.
No. Drainage is difficult to see, but
I mean, those two things, I think, are submitted to replace what the objections were. But I can't see any difference to that.
So what comments do we make on that one? We can't have any objections if we can't see what the difference is. No, no objections? Is it being removed? As conditions?
No.
No?
No.
I mean, unless the officer, the planning officer's got some specific, definite reason why he wants to keep them in, leave it to him, shall we? Quite happy with that, Kevin? Yeah. Yep. Right, that's that one. 252117, 2 Manners Road, household application for proposal of erection of a single-storey rear extension and part 2-storey, part single-storey side extension. I couldn't see any problems with that one.
No.
No, okay, no objections on that one. And 252, I'll be done on that one. Where are we?
Ridgeway.
Yeah, 252177. 7A, the Ridgeway, full application for proposal of erection of detached 2-storey, 3-bedroom dwelling and demolition of existing garage. Well, the demolition of the existing garage is on 7, isn't it? And he's going to divide the property up to make 7A. So the garage is coming off what is 7. He's knocking that down. And then
That's why I couldn't find the 7A on Google Maps.
no, well, 7A doesn't exist. It will do once he builds it.
He's calling it
7A.
7A.
The land, the piece of land is 7A.
Yeah.
But knocking that garage.
It's not, it doesn't exist yet.
Garages at the back there by the trees.
There's comments from neighbours I wrote down. What it said.
Showed up. If you, yeah, that's it. That's it there. That's it. It's not actually attached to it. It's a detached garage on that piece of land, but it actually was part of 7. All that area was, the whole area was 7, even including the red, wasn't it?
So he's taking a piece out of his garden.
Yes, he is.
His garden.
Yeah, knocking the garage down and building on that piece of land. Yeah.
All different sized plots along there.
So
aren't
yeah,
there?
it's quite a mixture, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, there's been quite a bit of building work along there, hasn't there? So,
Yeah. Is that, I don't know, is it an old, is it one of the older?
It's a private road.
Yeah,
And it's well established.
is this the one, yeah, it's got no pavements or anything like
No,
that?
there's no pavements.
Yeah, and that's what the,
why
that's why the objection was.
yeah, to the car parking.
If you look on Google Maps, as we can get it up, on satellite, there's not much room in the back garden when you look at the trees from above.
Right, so, yeah.
So that probably means they're going to have to take down a couple of
Take the
trees.
trees down.
Or at least, you know, the canopy.
Yeah,
What trees there?
it is the parking issues, because I think we've had, or there were comments from neighbouring. Was it on that one?
Yeah, so that's the one where they said there's no, it's only a small private
Yeah,
road.
yeah.
About bringing in more traffic,
Yes.
et cetera.
I think obviously that's something that we would have to
Agree.
comment on, is the lack of parking.
I mean, I've put down insufficient parking.
Yeah.
There's certainly no room on roads with
No.
vehicles.
Matthew, yes.
Hello, yes, I think just to confirm what a lot of the comments were saying, a lot of the comments were saying that despite the fact that the property shows 3 rooms on the first floor, there is quite a large study on the first floor that has built-in wardrobes, and the first floor there's also a study which has the word guest next to it, and across the way is a a shower room. So it's suggesting at times that could be a 5-bedroom rather than a 3-bedroom. So a lot of the public comments were saying that 2 car parking spaces would not be enough. So really, you'd have to look at the front of the property and see whether there was probably space for 3 car parking spaces.
We can only comment on what we are shown, though.
Yeah. Yes, which is 3
bedroom.
Yeah.
But can we have the opportunity to say that should it become? No, I don't know how you say.
Well,
it, should it
used as a
become
5-bedroom.
larger, more bedrooms. That parking space must be considered.
It could, I suppose, you could request that a condition is added that it with 2 parking spaces, it does not exceed 3 bedrooms. That could be a condition that you ask.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yes.
Go for that.
You're quite happy with those comments, yeah? Yeah. Thank you very much. Right, and 252231, 40 Clover Rise. Household application proposed single-storey rear extension with flat roof and roof light installation. Yeah, I looked at this one. It's a bit. These are all very new, aren't they? They're it's all not above.
No problem with Clover Rise.
Yeah. Yeah. The red part is the extension. So it really doesn't extend much beyond the neighbouring property at all, does it? No. It's not going to cause any problems with the road. No objection?
No,
No objection.
very small plot.
It is, isn't it? Right, next one is 252312. Full application proposed a change of use of existing property to a dermatology health centre. Use of Class C plus erection of a single-storey front extension. This is on the same side as the gym on that road, isn't it?
And what that bakery thing, the cleaners and all that,
I
yeah.
didn't like to mention the bakery. You'll think I spend all my time in there.
I've never been in there.
It's a very nice bakery.
My car won't stop there.
I thought it was on the middle part.
No, I think this is on
I
the.
thought it was on the middle part.
Oh, I've got it on the other side. I've got it on the side where it used to be the restaurant that was has been closed.
That was,
Benny's or
yeah, Benny's.
yeah, or whatever. I've taken it. See, that's the roundabout here, isn't it?
That's the roundabout.
Yeah. So it's round there, and it's that radar shop. That's the car park that used to be for the restaurant. The blue part, I think, is what was the restaurant. Yeah. That's the one that we're talking
One
about.
was the gym.
Yeah, the gym, yeah, that side. And the extension that they're putting on makes no difference to the road scene or the view of the road, does it? It doesn't, because it's sloping, it's.
Doesn't affect any residents, does it?
No.
No. No problem.
Questions? Retford Close, we've done, and right, 252352, 97 Fairwater Drive. Household application proposed installation of 5 roof lights comprising 3 roof lights to the rear and 2 roof lights to the front roof slope, alongside alterations to the front porch, fenestration and replacement glazing and new, another one, anthracite grey UPVC frames. You didn't think that.
David.
The roof space where these roof lights are going in, again, is put as storage. I don't know, you wonder, but then that's not for us to question, is it?
My roof space is storage.
Have you got roof lights? My roof space is and my garage.
And it's full.
Yeah, but I mean, just the fact you're putting roof lights in it.
And it's just they want to let more light in, maybe they had it done and then wish they'd put more.
My roof space contains,
Sorry?
my roof space contains the bedrooms.
Yeah, so it's just, yes.
Just want more light,
I don't see there's
it's
any.
not affecting anybody, I don't think.
No comments? No.
No.
Right. The application's done. Ben? Right, planning decisions, which is on page 20. Have a chance to have a look at those. We did how we fared. Used contrary to the town council's recommendation. That was the shop unit, 7 London Centre. So that was refused. Application of process station 2 number is interesting by virtue of its inappropriate location close to the entrance doors of the premises and its excessive.
So the Tesco.
Yeah, excessive height and build form.
It's up on
Proposal
the road.
visually enclose the effects, it's thereby increasing public safety concerns because of its poor design, legibility, and reduced scope for any visual surveillance that would help avoid unnecessary instances of crime and/or antisocial behaviour. Proposal is therefore contrary to the policies of C.1, C.3. So it was a couple of issues, obviously safety of people exiting the building and also the concern of.
I've been in that new Tesco's. It's,
Yeah, I've been in.
it's down the side. Isn't it?
Yeah, it's down the side.
Nowhere near the,
We looked at it.
But if you remember, I did say that it was apart from the building. It was set off.
Yes.
It left a gap,
Yeah.
and that it ought to be integral. with
They're worried
the,
about them.
building.
Yeah.
I don't know how they.
So anyway, they went against us and they refused it. So it'd be worth going to them and look, see what's been done to how they've done it. So, right, and these are refused endorsing the town council's.
It's a nice big Tesco's, isn't it?
Yeah. Approved contrary to the, this one was approved. This was 30 Reading Road, household application, first floor side extension, garage conversion. Yeah, we were, this was the very big one, wasn't it? That was on the side of the road. We were proposed extension was stepped back from the front elevation drive. They noted that the extension was in line with the front of the station. But anyway, that got approved. And Coleman's 25 Coleman's household applications proposed erection of a single part story rear extension and fenestration. Planning committee considered the application, wish to repeat the objection they raised with regards to the application on the grounds that they believed proposed development would be overbearing and overdevelopment. The committee noted the footprint for the new proposal appears bigger than the original application. I just didn't see that our comments were valid there at all.
I thought that said to local contest.
Sorry?
I thought that said to local contest. One moment.
Oh, right.
Context.
Approved endorsing the London Bridge, Tennyson Road, actually, right, and approved, oh, yeah, all of these, so. Yeah, okay. Right, any comments, anybody on those, or we just going to accept it as how it went? Planning appeals. Allsick Crescent household application proposed 2-story front and side. So Woodley Town Council had no objections to the proposal. So about the following decision, wasn't it? Right. The appeal was dismissed. 91 Reading Road. Right. So that endorsed what they've said. And Canaan, well, both of them 91. So that was the one we were just talking about. Yeah. So the appeal against Borough's decision. And the appeal panel refused the appeal. Right, tree preservation orders, a whole host of them there. Anybody have any comments on those at all?
So it's not item number 9, that was the object.
Oh, yeah, I missed that one. Right. Existing local development notification. This is to note that they received the following application. This is 22 Harold Way application for a certificate of existing law development, erection of a single story rear extension. So that will come back to us when it's a full application, no doubt. That's all the trees. And enforcement issues on page 23. Thanks. Then is Ledley Road East, building materials with asbestos left behind. Rowley Law. Abandoned garages, 151, 167 Headley Road. Any ideas? I can't think where that is. That's the one with all the building materials. But
It's not a screw fix and all that is it?
No, it's opposite Woodley Calf on Just Tiles Roundabout. I used to live there many years ago.
Is it a masonette or?
Yeah, behind the Masonettes, there's a block of garages. All that land was owned by the guy that used to own Just Tiles. So he used to have to pay 50 quid a year ground rent.
Right. Okay, so the building materials contained asbestos as well, not filthy.
Well, the garage roofs would have asbestos sheeting on. Yeah.
It's all right, as long as you don't disturb it.
Yeah.
Disturbed it, obviously. Right. Slightly friends, anything at all on these? Infrastructure dwelling without planning permission, Kingfisher Drive, shop unit. Some unauthorised works prior to planning permission. That's the Tesco's again.
Yeah.
So they obviously put all the air conditioning or the heat pumps in.
We probably thought, oh, look at it.
Let me get away with that, and they didn't. Right, 198 Coleman's Road, Woodley, unauthorised car repair business operating without permission. Right now, that one is actually just around the corner from me, and I spoke to the enforcement officer about that, and they had an enforcement against him, and he ended up in court. Now I know he's been back doing the work again. But I thought once you've had an enforcement against you, it's just a straight process to take him to court, isn't it? Yeah. So that one will more likely come up with a straight to court, I would have thought. Not if he's operating a car repair business. He's got about 5 cars there and a caravan. When I went to see the enforcement officer, she said, "Oh yes, we know about him. Very difficult man to deal with." It's almost as though they're all scared to go and knock on his door. But anyway, they did get him. That'd be interesting. Port Rush Development Night. No, that's it. Any others? Any concerns? No. Right. Enforcement closures. Anything on those that need? South Lake Parade, running motorcycle business. Oh, South Lake Parade. London Bridge Road, building works without permission. London Bridge Road driveway adapted causing surface water runoff. Car park funds not clear. Overhanging pavement and timber structure being built as habitable accommodation without planning. So all of those are no breach. There you go. Right. Yeah, this is the next one is premises license. This is to note the following application for a major variation of the premises license received by Woking Borough Council, Tesco's. I think we had opportunity to comment on this. This is an alteration on their licensing only.
I picked up the fact that they're using the same plans that previously.
Yeah, they've actually now got to adhere to the 4 o'clock closing on a Sunday, apparently.
Yeah, because it's a larger shop.
Larger shop, yeah. So whereas it stayed open till what? 11? Yeah, it did on Sunday.
I didn't know that.
It's now got to change to 4, and obviously a later opening, isn't it? Yeah.
10 to 4.
Yeah. Right, so no comments on that. We've only got to note that one anyway, I think, so that's that. And losing myself.
Up to 13 on page 5.
Yeah. Advertisement consent application, and this is for the Parade Coppice Road application. Set replacement of illuminated fascia signs and 2 non-illuminated fascia signs to the parade. Even know, 2. It's not the undertakers, I hope. You don't normally have illuminated signs, do you? Must be the other end, is it? But no. Anyway, that's I think that's only to note. So there's nothing there. Right. 14. Cycling and walking subcommittee. To note the report of the cycling and walking subcommittee meeting held on the 15th of September, and B, to consider the updating the cycling and walking committee terms of reference to include the addition of a member of Wokingham Borough Council's My Journey team to the group's membership. Any comments? I mean, as far as the we note the first report that to consider updating the walking subcommittee to include a member of Council My Journey team. I mean, makes sense, doesn't it? Have we made comment on that at all? Or is that something we've got to do now? Is there a time limit on that?
Yeah, if that's something the committee's happy to do.
Yeah,
we can
yeah.
just update it.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I think we're happy on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Transportation and highways, community speed watch, receive an update on the speed watch activities. I don't think we can go anywhere on that one at the moment, can we? We're waiting for June to come back on that, isn't it? And Carol, isn't it? Carol, is it? No, not now. What's going to happen now then?
Just no, I did circulate some information today or yesterday, possibly. We received from the Valley Police, which had some data, letters that have gone out, and prosecutions for speeding and traffic in the area of interest, but that's got to be with us.
Okay. Right, traffic regulation order to note Wokingham Boroughs Council consultation with roads the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit on Woodlands Avenue. A map of the location at appendix 16, so page 37. So this was looked at, wasn't it? 7.
Yeah, that was sent out to
Yeah.
members to comment individually.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that one's okay. And Travel Neighbourhood Plan to note the Charlton Parish Council undertook its consultation regarding their proposed neighbourhood plan on the 1st of September and the 13th of October. Details were circulated to all members via email. So that was just the note, to note. Annual grant guidelines to consider updating the council's annual grant guidelines to specify that an organisation may only receive one grant from the council or any type per financial year. Draft updated guidelines are provided on appendix 18. I mean,
it just seems a reasonable thing. Yeah. There's possibly an omission for things.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think have we ever made 2 grants for the same thing? Is there a thing that's happened?
No, I don't think we have. It's just it's not in there. It's something that the helpful to have covered off.
Right. It's fine. Yeah, we can approve that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Community issues to discuss. Highlight and discuss any recent community issues by members. The thing about buses, actually, think about the buses on Coleman's Moor Lane, because they closed Coleman's Moor Lane. It was going to be for 16 weeks, which took us right up to Christmas. And it meant that there were no buses actually running in Coleman's Moor Lane, and they could have turned them off into Vauxhall Drive quite easily. The remark was made, and I think dealt with. But then they finished the roadworks early, more or less straight after, so they opened it up anyway. So, but it just it was a pointless exercise. Why they stopped the buses completely, I don't know. Anyway, that was that one. But any other community issues?
You know the park here?
Yes.
Okay, well, I've been talking to the police recently. Okay, because I was stopped as I was going. Well, not stopped, but as I was going between the pedestrian crossing and the park. Past the Oakwood Centre here, on that pathway. A couple of young hooligans stopped their scooters on the footrest of my wheelchair, okay? Not before it, not after it, wouldn't move out of the way or anything. Were fairly abusive and told me that I shouldn't be out in it anyway. Yeah, okay. And I did talk to the community liaison officer with and they're keeping an eye on. They're aware that they've got a gang that are meeting up in certain parts after school, and that they've got little groups that where certainly at least one kid is being bullied quite prolifically.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
they know who they are,
they know who they are, yeah. Just keeping an eye out for us. If anyone notices any incidents whatsoever, they just give them a ring and that.
Yes. Right, publication of information, P2 Love. Promise inclusion of Berkshire Association of Local Councils, we've got publications of. And future agenda items. Any thoughts? No. Okay. Publicity and website. Thoughts, anything that needs to be?
More now.
No, okay, so. Right, very good. So that's the end of the meeting. Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you, Bill.
The next meeting will be on Friday.
Friday, yeah.
Friday, the mayor's quiz.
Oh, yes, yeah, that's coming.